Hey guys, John Wooten here, and today we're going to talk about Trump, the art of the deal. Super cool stuff. I read this one a while ago, and I'm super excited to talk about it. And I got to say, I'm pretty sure for most people that are looking at this book, and especially for me, it all just kind of people only really read this because he's the president, which is so cool, because it's this older book where he talks more about his real estate history and his investing history. Because I didn't know too much about Trump until he's was the president, and then you start to learn whoa, he did a lot of stuff. It was pretty freaking cool. And the whole book, it's sort of more autobiographical, but he also talks sort of, how he went from, basically nothing, just growing up. He got in trouble in school, he had to go to military school, tough stuff. And then, he just started investing in real estate, and then kept investing in real estate, and then kept investing in real estate, and then, is multi-billionaire. And it's super cool to see the way that he goes through his process, because you can study that and learn from it, and also gain some really valuable principles and insights from everything that he's done and the actions that he went through to, get through his steps. I know, earlier in the book, he talks about very specifically how he had to kind of go away from what his dad was doing in real estate investing. His dad was working with low-income housing and trying to build a bunch of apartments for tons and tons of people that just didn't have a lot of money to pay for them. And he was really struggling because the audience he was seeking didn't have really the money to pay for the services that he was offering. So Trump said, he didn't want to go through that process. He didn't want to work in an environment where, the people he was working with just weren't able to pay him. So he, went the vast opposite of what his dad did, and went in the ultra luxury market to serve a higher end client, and used that as a way to expand his business significantly faster than his dad was, which is really interesting. And it's like this business insight of, who is your ideal client, who do you want to serve the most in the marketplace, and how are you going to connect to them and grow with them. Now with Trump's dad, he, went for the, and New York State tax credits, low-income housing, and he really tried, but he wasn't able to make the numbers work a lot of the times, and Trump says it was a big struggle. But when he targeted really high-income, really high-value clients, and bumped up the values of his properties, he was able to turn significantly more profits out of whatever it was he was doing, which was super cool. It made me realize you can definitely have products and services that serve the masses, and that's awesome, but it's also really good to have that higher end thing, that thing in the back that's going to actually allow you to sustainably practice whatever it is that you do by providing that higher level of income by serving a higher end client. And it's cool, there's some pictures in here too. You can see a lot of the really cool buildings that he's worked on, designed, worked through. Definitely some great insights into getting started with real estate. I think he's got some of his pictures in here where he was 12 or he was at 12 years old, he's working on this real estate in New York. It's pretty freaking cool stuff that he was, going and starting with that stuff so young. And then he talks a lot about his family, but I think one of the bigger things that appear from it are sort of his overarching life work and a lot of the challenges he went through. So he goes, there was one very specific instance that stuck with me for a while now, and that's when he was trying to build this convention center. And the city of New York was trying to build the convention center, but they weren't able to complete it. They had a bunch of people working on construction. They had poor foundations. It was just a whole big mess for a long time until Trump was able to come in. And what he did was he privatized the construction, right? And he took control of it. And it was the same thing with the ice rink. The state was trying to do it. They couldn't do it. The city was trying to do it. It was very ineffective. Came in, took control of it as a private entity, and then they had it done almost instantly. I mean, relative to the historical work, especially with that ice rink, right? Same situation with the ice rink. City couldn't build it. It was pathetic. But then he comes in, he gets his guys on it, and he freaking just makes it work. And he makes it work because he had the experience, he had the history, and he had the skills to have it happen at a significantly faster rate than the unprofessional city or whoever was trying to manage it, which is pretty freaking cool stuff there. And there was this one example that showed me that there's amazing successes. He's had these amazing successes. He's built these tremendous buildings and made tons of cash. But something that really, caught my eye was also learning a little bit more about the struggles and how he overcame those struggles. And one thing, that he talks about, he was getting investors together to come to a new building, to come and get it, ready for funding, and he just needed to raise some money. And at the time, he was really close to, he was struggling with it, and he just wasn't getting stuff done. there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened because there were like big issues on the site, and the workers were, it was a really, really tough situation. But what was interesting is on the day that he has a bunch of prospects, a bunch of investors come in, he tells all the construction workers to just look like they're working and walk back and forth and, you know, just move bricks and pick stuff up. And one of the potential investors asked Donald, like, hey, why is there this guy in this forklift just picking up dirt and moving it and then putting it back in the same place with a forklift or whatever, or a digger? And he just says, oh, they must be preparing the ground. Because, you know, he understood that he had to make it look like stuff was getting done, even if nothing was really getting done, because he needed to have that good public face to get that investment, to go through with the deal and to make it work. And it was cool to see him kind of like figure it out in the hustle and the grunt of it, even when it would have been a tough situation for a lot of people to pitch. He just kind of figured out how to leverage other people and make it look really, really good. And you see that a lot in this book. He talks a lot about, you know, some of the bigger deals he's done and how he's gone in and, you know, had to convince, you know, huge companies to, you know, he had the deal with Trump Tower, right? He had to buy the air rights of the nearby buildings. And, you know, he goes through all the psychology and all the principles behind his negotiations with the nearby H&M, right? And so he tells some really, really great stories that reveal some great underlying principles about how to really get over objections, how to handle those fears, how to get in and make something happen and negotiate at a very high 10,000-foot view, you know, literally, to make whatever you need to make happen. And when it happens, you can take the results that come from that, you can take the impact that comes from that, scale it up, level it up, and use it as a way to influence the future growth of whatever you want to do and to work around, you know, traditional rules and regulations that you don't agree with, right? So he wanted his tower to be the tallest in the city, so he had to work super hard, and he made it happen. Instead of, you know, going out there and knocking down other people's towers, he did the work, he put it in, he did the negotiations, and he just bulked it up. He talks a lot because at a certain point he says it's significantly more expensive to keep building another floor. I think it's after like 60 or 70 floors, it gets super expensive to add another floor. But he says he had to do it because it was his goal to have that the tallest tower. So it was cool because it's like you see him have this goal, then he takes the goal, he makes a team to actualize it, and then they go out and they fulfill and they make it a reality, which is super cool. And that's how they did, you know, the Trump Tower. And then he also talks a little bit about how to integrate business with, you know, consumer retail. And how he worked through the design and the management of the lower Trump Tower floors on the street level where they have a bunch of shops, and how he paid super close attention to detail to all the stones that they were using and all the materials they had. And it shows that, like, you got to care about even the smallest little quality things, especially in really big projects, even if it doesn't seem as important, because it's going to show the character and the underlying value, the principles and the attractiveness of the people that are actually out there making it work and doing the construction, making it happen. He went and he hand selected, you know, the stone for the floors. Like, that's pretty cool, yeah? And there's a lot of really great examples like that, especially with some of his hotels towards the gambling triangle. He had some really nice casino hotels, and he talks about I don't remember where they were. They were in like Atlantic City, something like that. And it was really interesting, something about, you know, the 80-20 principle, where, you know, 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. And it was super weird because these casinos, they were like normal hotels. He invested in normal hotels. He built normal hotels, and that's where his background was in. But then he built these casinos, and instead of having the majority of the revenue come from the hotel, like 90% of his profits came from the casino, and he would make more money with the casino than he would make with hundreds and hundreds of hotels. And it was like, dude, what? That's so cool, because now he was able to leverage this very specific niche industry, and he was using that alone to create the bulk of his profits, exclusively focusing on casino gambling in Atlantic City. Which was super cool, and it makes you think, like, okay, well, what can you focus on in your business? What can you focus on in your life to get those 80% of results with 20% of the effort or whatever, right? because he was making so ridiculously much more with those casinos that like I was like, dude, why do you have hotels? You know? And it, you know, you think about that in the market, you think about that with financial assets. If you're into that, you can think about how you're going to get the majority of your results from just a couple of those trades that are really, really, really good. And that's why you just put in the time to make those really good trades, just like he put in the time to go out and get those really good casinos. And then he ended up getting almost sued from, I think, Hilton, trying to use the Trump name under their regulations or something, which was really crazy. So it showed that like he'd been so successful, and then here's how he dealt with people that came in and tried to rob him of whatever it was that he was doing, which is pretty freaking cool stuff. It's some great lessons to learn from like literally decades and decades of this man's life, you know, going out there and doing a lot of his real estate investing before, and, you know, making deals before, you know, he got into, you know, online business or politics or whatever, like, because he still does this, right? Like, these are assets that he's built, that he's bought, that he's, you know, whatever, invested in. And they're going to pay him for the rest of his life. And they're going to pay his kids for the rest of his life. He talked about this one example. He was negotiating the mortgage on one of his buildings, which was like a super big tower. And he's talking about, like, he was looking at the mortgage in terms of like 175-year segments and how many of those he's going to get from the state of New York. Like, dude, that's so awesome, because it makes you look so far out into the future that it's not even a question of your reality anymore, and it shows that the impact you're having on the people around you is so ridiculously huge that you need to plan out for generations and generations to come, because that's how long your impact is going to last, and that's how long what your work does is going to matter to people. And I thought that was a really great underlying principle of like, think so ridiculously huge that you impact your grandson's grandson. Like, that's really cool. I thought that was a nice part. It's a really cool book. Art of the Deal. I think it's really good if you're interested in increasing your sales, or if you're in any kind of position where you need to sell yourself. There's some great principles on how to persist and how to actually like get out there and put the work in, and then the steps to take that from, you know, good to just ridiculously great. Obviously, some of the most renowned buildings in the world from this man on this book, which is super cool. Also really great for real estate investing. You know, just getting into it. I'm not a big real estate guy right now, and there's not very specific real estate knowledge in here. It's mostly about the disciplines and practices of this man who you know, went from, you know, you don't start owning buildings, right, to you know, multi-billionaire, which is really cool, and it shows the power of compounding wealth and long-term growth with percentage gains, which is super cool stuff. I really would recommend it to someone who wants like to see that mindset and to get in the right idea that like it's possible and you can get out there and do it. And if you see the really successful people, you're able to replicate that, you're able to do it again, and you can, you know, manifest that in your life through the work, mimicking the work that they've put in to get to where they are. And obviously, you know, President now, so very effective at whatever he does. So really cool stuff, guys. Hope you guys have some value out of this. Hope you enjoyed. And I'll leave a link below. You can get Trump, Art of the Deal. Super cool stuff. Have an amazing day. Thanks.